noise.
Jeez, it's a leather chair. You think I'd be like on crackers?
All right, here we are. Flipping houses. You're in there talking, and we're supposed to be starting. All right, here we are. Flipping houses for rookies. Episode number 246.
2, 4, 6, 8. Who do we appreciate? Oh, never mind.
The less I do. No, that's not what I wanted to say.
Sorry, Bill. Don't make me distract you.
Yeah, it's already too late. All right, here we go. The less I think about my creative real estate deals, the more I make. And how you can do it too. Overthinking. The demise of more real estate deals than most statisticians can count. Why do you suppose this is? More to the point, why do we put so much confidence into thinking when trying to make decisions? And if you believe I'm backwards or nuts on this one point or these few questions, then this one single podcast is going to be cataclysmic for you. So what are the obstacles? And why do most creative real estate entrepreneurs suck at it so bad to the point where most fail? Unless they get the mindset we are about to cover in this episode, being sarcastic for a moment, Peter, the procrastinators should probably listen to this earth-shattering podcast later.
Yeah.
Only because they may see for the very first time in their life why they may have been so wrong for all of the thought they put behind decisions, just so they feel safe, which is exactly how I invest safely. But today, I'm going to penetrate Bill's forehead and let you see how I do deals without overthinking and letting fear into the process. Now, with this confidence, you can comfortably move through a deal to completion without sleepless nights and anxiety. So let's listen.
Okay.
So first thing I got to do is the housekeeping stuff. So realize that wherever you're watching this podcast or you've heard this podcast or whatever platform you're in the description, there is a link. And inside that link, there's a lot of free stuff for you. There's over 25 things in there. There's scripts and videos and white papers and all kinds of stuff. I've mentioned this numerous times in the last several podcasts. I think the most exciting thing in that list is the lease option explain document. If most people just downloaded that 5-page document and hand wrote it 10 times, they would understand lease options and they wouldn't need a bunch of training from me or training from anybody because they would understand lease options to the point where they could actually talk to a seller like fluently about it. Okay. So yeah, there's some really good stuff there. So just go to that link. It's in your description and there's plenty of documents there for you. As well, every Thursday morning, used to be 9:30. It's been more like 9:15 lately, but every Thursday morning, 9:30 or so Eastern Standard Time, Pete and I actually record this podcast and we live stream it onto Flakebook and ZooTube. So you can go over there and you can actually check it out at 9:30, 9:15, 9:30. And you can actually ask questions. I have a screen in front of me with all of those comments or chat boxes in front of me. So I will answer your question as long as it pertains to the podcast. If you're looking for help outside of the podcast, you go to flippinghousesforrookies.com and type in, or on the top right-hand side, there's a support link, and I will answer all your questions. I answer all those support tickets, not VAs. I answer them personally. So that is the place to get a hold of me. Okay? Get rid of that. Good morning, Desiree. She says she's all ears. She's all ears. All right, Peter.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start off with this statement and then move on without really having to explain it at first. But instead, move through this podcast so you can so I'm going to kind of demonstrate it with a lot of theory. I'm not going to try to do that. I'm just going to explain it, and it's like the mantra of this podcast.
Okay.
Here we go. So this is a rule or a law or whatever you want to call it in creative finance, real estate investing, but it could be used anywhere. Okay?
Sure.
So here we go. Never, 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 never let a deal die on your side of the desk.
Yeah.
In other words, always leave sellers with your offer, even if the seller think it's nuts. Because one thing we know is time changes everything. So never, ever, never, 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 never let a deal die on your side of the desk. Now, the premise of this podcast is too many of our listeners or too many of our students or too many of my private coaching clients let the deal die on their side of the desk. And it's for a multiple amount of reasons, like fear, or they think they don't know what to do, or they have to have some magical sentence or something to say, or and we've spent the last several podcasts talking about how you really can't make a person motivated. They really are motivated already. What you need to do is just figure out what they're motivated for and tap into that. Both my wife and I are married. This is our second marriage. So she was married before and I was married before. So her first husband, I'll never forget, told me it's one of the good things that he's done for me, because there haven't been many. And it outweighs all the others. But he was a wrestler. You know him, Jim.
Yeah.
Obviously, you know him. You know him longer than I did. Right? He was a wrestler. And he would tell me, he told me this story one time, that in wrestling, the way it works is when a person is charging you or running after you, you don't try to stop them from running at you. What you do is you use their emotion to flip them down onto the mat.
Yeah.
So in other words, their emotion of running at you helps you get what you want. Right? And when I talk about, finding out what the motivation of a seller is, it's the same scenario. It's like they're running at you with their motivation. Just flip it down onto the mat and get what you want.
Yeah. Well, they might say something that you think, oh my God, that's a problem. Geez, that's not good. But if you look the way you look at it, and I try to think this way because I learned it from you, is you use that to your advantage. So if that's the problem, try to solve it for the guy instead of like, oh, that's not good.
Right.
Use it somehow.
Right. So when that happens and that person we'll say the wrestler is charging at you, this is what I mean by never, never, never let the deal die at your side of the desk. Right. So there has to be something. You have to do something. Right. I mean, when the wrestler's charging at you, whatever size he or she is, right, you got to do something. Otherwise, you're going to get run over, right, or you're going to get pummeled, right. So
that's right.
So I don't mean to make the transaction conversation that way either, but it is kind of that way. So if you study it like I do by pure observation and just listening to so many people telling me things, right, the deal stalls on the investor side of the desk way too often. They don't call them back. They take too long to call them back. They do, they're afraid. They're trying to go do research. They're trying to do this. They're trying to do that. They're trying to do this. And it's not supposed to be that way. Now that this is stated so eloquently, in other words, finally with the words, right? I want to go into a little theory on why this doesn't happen with the listeners, why this happens with our listeners so much, okay? So why do they do this? Why does a deal stall at their side of the desk? Make sense?
Sure.
Thus the reason for no or lack of deal transaction income. So this theory, is in the name of those that have no deals or a lack of deal income. Because if you look at it, the deals are stolen on their side of the desk, right? That's kind of what's happening. So you're kind of looking at me perplexed. Am I out to lunch or being too weird here or something?
No, I'm sucking it all in. I think I have, when I show up in the morning, I don't know where you're going with this. So I just listen like anybody else.
Okay.
But knowing you and talking to you enough that I think I know where you're headed. And I think of examples when you've done it. I'm just thinking it all through because, we're working on a deal now. We sold something, blah, blah. I'm just sucking it all in.
Good. So as I've stated so many times before, Peter, so many times, you can't buy real estate unless you make offers first. Right? Much like you can't get married unless you propose first.
Yeah, true that.
It's the same significance. So why is thought a waste of time? Why is thought a waste of time? So let's take a thought leader, somebody who's been considered to be a thought leader, right? These unusual cats are not really thinkers if you go behind the scenes, right?
Yeah.
But instead, folks who do stuff.
Oh, I would hope so.
That's how they become thought leaders. They learn by living. I mean, if somebody wanted to call me a thought leader, which I don't believe I am, but I've been accused of that, right? I mean, you know me, you know my routine. We talk multiple times during the week. It's like, how do I learn my stuff? Well, I'm going to explain that all today. How did I get to where I am now, right? And I'm going to tell you, folks, it's not some magic formula. It's a mindset.
Oh, definitely. The phrase you've been using a couple times recently, learn by living. Is that yours? Did you find that someplace? Because I've never heard anybody use that, and I like it. Where'd you get that?
I was reading something that it's a little bit of both.
Yeah, it's good. Learn by living. People can call it experience, but I don't know. It seems to be different than that. Like the experience seems to just happen to you, but learn by living, like you're learning while you're living. You're not just waiting to let it happen to you.
It kind of comes from an offspring, or I guess you could say that, from a Ron LeGrand saying.
Yeah.
Ron LeGrand says that you can't make money unless you put yourself in a position to do it. So you can't be wealthy unless you put yourself in a position to do it. It's like I always say, very often I'll say, money doesn't find deals find money.
Right.
It's the same kind of a concept. It's like wealth isn't going to find you. You have to propose a deal to it. You have to put yourself in the path of progress. Right. It's kind of like when we're looking for apartment buildings, right? We want to be in the path of progress. Right. It's the same type of a concept. So, I just kind of, I don't know, I guess I just kind of coined that learn while you're living. It comes from that. You have to put yourself in a position to be able to receive a deal or receive a check or receive wealth. You know what I mean?
Well, I see you do it when we're in the middle of a deal and there's a lot of details. So like say after we have something, we're working on how to do something or how to arrange a house or how to get it set up for sale, and you run into a problem. And we might stand there scratching our head and I think, oops, it may be like a little bit of a brick wall, and you just keep looking at it and you come up with some simple angle and everybody's going, oh, it's going to cost $10,000. Oh, you got to do this. You can't do this. You can't do that. And you just keep chewing on your cigar, quietly chewing. And then half an hour later, it could be the next day. You go, oh, we'll just do this. It's like, oh, why not? We've been stuck on things that other people walk away from. But like you're kind of learning by staring at it and it stares back and you just keep looking at it and some solution shows up and you figure something out. You learn.
Well, you can't argue with me on this statement. The best education is observation.
Yeah.
Right. So how could you observe if you're not living and being there?
That's right.
Right.
Yeah, you can only learn so much from books and situations, but you find yourself in some situation that's kind of new, a little different. And all you can't go find a book someplace. You're standing there. You got to look at it straight on. And I see you do it. And you just come up with some very simple or crazy, but it works.
Yep. Cool.
You're learning while you're living.
I do every day. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to read that last paragraph again so I can continue on with some evidence. Okay, so let's take a thought leader. These unusual cats are not really thinkers, but instead folks who do stuff. That's how they become thought leaders. They learn by living. Here is proof of my statement, Peter. Okay?
Yeah, yeah.
So what is 5 times 6?
Well, it's either 56 or 30.
Right, so it's 30, right?
Okay. 30.
Okay, so how about this one? How about walking across the room to get a glass of water? Right? Do you think when you do that, so picture yourself in one side of the room and the glass of water is in the other and you have to walk across the room. Do you think left step, left step, balance, 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 move leg, that now moves foot so you can stride? Do you think that? Right? If you actually did this, your mind would be occupied with all the body functions and could perhaps take from the actual goal of getting the glass of water, right?
Yeah.
You get confused in all the minutia, right? It would cloud your thinking, right? Because you're like, so that's what I'm talking about. Which with your mind so full of these thoughts and minor details, you'd get nothing done. Oh, yeah. Sorry. I just described the procrastinator. Oh my goodness. I just described half of our listeners right now. And I'm like throwing it in your face right now. I'm not being polite. I'm being a dick. And I get that, but get out of it. Get over it, because you're not going to get through it if you keep doing that.
Well, what I've noticed in your example is there's more attention being paid to all the little activities, all the little steps. I better sharpen my pencil, or, I better look into this. All the details, the attention's there instead of the goal or how to arrive at the goal. That's what it seems to me.
Right. And I'm gonna tell you how to overcome this in a minute, because you do need to do that stuff, but how do you do it?
Okay.
But so anyways, let's move on. So our society tells us or trains us to think. Right? Like, why don't you sleep on it or think about it? Right? When in fact, nothing really changes except your emotions. Right? The thinking didn't do anything. Your emotions changed.
No, and that's what people use to get out of doing things. So let me think about it. I'll get back to you. To get out of it, instead of talking about what's really happening and just figuring it out. I mean, it's not going to change. You got this, you got that. Add it up, make a decision.
So I'm going to throw a wrench into this whole podcast right now, because we all know, anybody that studied sales at all knows this datum. People make decisions with emotions and back it up with thinking, or rationale,
logic.
So what I'm saying, what I'm telling you is, why do you need to think about it? You already made your mind up. All you're trying to do is come up with a justification of why you should do it, because your emotions are like, I want to do this. So it's backwards, right? Or like you said, it's an excuse. How about this one? And this is because thinking is only useful at learning or creating stuff. So thinking is good when you want to create something or you want to learn something, right? You're going to use some sort of rationale, right?
Yeah.
Which really only happens as an automaticity, right? To make sure you don't go into an unknown without risk. That's what thinking is. You're going into an unknown without risk, right? Which is now a big thought process, right? Which is only just really imagined information or data, right? Not really going to happen that way.
Like a lot of what ifs.
Yeah. So if you're not learning while you're living and you're not observing exactly what's going on, then what are you doing? You're filling the vacuum of unknownness. You know, that vacuum or that hole, that black hole, you're filling it with information you think might happen based on your experience, right? Mm-hmm. Let me give you a classic example. Do you think that me making a transaction would be different than you? Or better yet, do you think that my 3-year-old grandson could make a transaction like me? No. So my point is we can all think about the transaction, but my experience and your experience and my 3-year-old grandson's experience, and that's kind of a stupid example, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Is going to taint your thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So your thinking is based on your experience. So is it really thinking or is it recall?
Well, recall wouldn't be terrible if it helps you. Okay. But thinking and just imagining things like what if, that's not good. So is there a difference that I'm thinking there's a difference. What do you think?
So thinking is often mocked up, or your rendition of how something might happen. So in my mind, it kind of goes like this. This is how it works. There's 3 sections. Mm-hmm. You have your past experience, right? With things that you've done, which, by the way, I believe those past experiences are only the failures, or the ones that you didn't have good luck with is what you remember.
Yes.
Okay. Then you have
they stick out. That's like, right. They painfully stick out.
Right. And then you have your imagination as a second element, mm-hmm. right? Which is something that hasn't happened yet. You're dreaming about it or daydreaming about it, or you're thinking about something that hasn't happened yet. So that's the future. The other one's the past. And then you have what's in front of you, your observation, the physical universe. Hmm. That's present time. So you have past, future, present time, right? So why am I even talking about this, and why have I figured this out? Why is this so weird to you this morning? I'll tell you the reason why. My father-in-law, who is, by the way, the 3rd one I've had to go through in my adult life, has Alzheimer's. He's got dementia.
Yeah.
Right? And here's what I've learned about dementia. The person that has it, which you're going through this with your mom too, by the way, right?
Yeah, that's right.
The person that has it is confused. They don't know what picture are they looking at. Are they looking at the past? Are they looking at their imagination, or are they looking at the present time physical universe? They get mixed up on which one it is, and sometimes they're in the past, sometimes they're in some imaginary place, and sometimes they look and when they're looking at the present time environment they're in, these pictures are running their mind and they're confused. So they're in the wrong date era. They're, people are different people because they're in their past, and they're in other words, if your mental image pictures were like a train track, right? Mm-hmm. And they were the ties in a train track, and they were all, when you're saying they're all equally laid out, right?
Yeah, they're all in a row, time dated, in sequence.
Right. So they're in sequence of when they happened.
Right.
Right. So what happens when you start getting dementia and you can't control those pictures anymore? They get out of sequence, and all of a sudden, some of it's imagined, some of it's not. It's confusing. So I mean, none of this is written down here. I'm getting a little bit too profound on this, but just realize that my take on this is your thinking isn't all it's cracked up to be, because it's probably mixed up. It's either taking something from the past or trying to mock something up in the future that it knows nothing about, and not relying enough on the observation and the physical universe, what's really going on. So because you're trying to sort these past pictures out, and this is all subconscious, by the way, you're trying to sort these past pictures out, mm-hmm. and you're trying to sort out the future pictures, and you're kind of trying to get some sort of reasoning from technically all that false data, because it's not true, when the real data is right in front of you. in the physical universe. If you just clear all that other stuff away and just look at it for what it is, the answer's there.
Yeah.
Just pervade the problem. Just kind of like surround the problem and make yourself part of the problem, which is why I say learn by living.
Yeah.
You know, make yourself part of the problem, or part of the solution, or part of the situation, right? So what happens is this scenario is like guessing on how so when you're in the middle of this, right? It's like guessing how a book or a movie might end before you get to the end, right? You had your past experience of how you would do it, then you have the imagination of like what the author's going to do, but the truth is you haven't watched the movie.
Yeah.
Right? So it's your opinion until you get better facts to think with. So you think you know how the movie's going to end, or you think you know how the book is going to end based on your experience and based on your imagination. But until you actually read the book or watch the movie, you don't have the facts.
Right. And it's always better when it ends differently than you think it would, because it's more interesting. And in a real estate transaction, if you think, oh, this isn't going to go well, they're going to want too much, or it's not going to happen some way, it's really a lot better when it goes not the way everybody else thinks, but the way you make it go. And then it winds up okay.
So just as a side note, Peter, that's amazing what you just said, because it triggered something in my mind. So as a side note, listen to this loudly. What's the purpose of a coach? What is a coach's real job? So I'm going to tell you what I believe. Desiree says, that's correct, Desiree. Desiree says, you attract what you think.
Okay.
Right? If you think it won't work, it won't work.
It won't work. If you think it won't work, you're right. It won't. Somebody else did that one.
Henry Ford.
Right. It's right. If you think it won't work, you're right. It won't.
Yep. So my job as a coach, my only job as a coach, is to take my my student or mentee or whatever you want to call them, right? And get them to look at it from different angles.
Yeah.
You know, look at it from north, west, east, south. Look at it from a different angle and see if something else could be done.
Right.
Right. So that's all my job is. And I evidently do that very well, because I have a lot of coaching clients that rave about me all the time, which is, you know, a mental thing I had to deal with, because I don't like to have all those compliments. That's just not me. You know me. I'm kind of humble about that. Right. So all I do is I look. So when you're asking me, you know, how do I do that? It's because I'm doing the same thing with my seller. I'm consulting them. I'm getting them to look at it from more than one angle. Let me give you a quick example. They want all cash. Well, they don't know that there's 14 other ways to do it. So I get them to look at it from a different angle. And I say, what if, or imagine this, or if you had a magic wand, could this happen? You know, and I come up with all these little ways to say it, right? But in truth, I'm getting them to look at it from a different direction. Okay. By the way, none of this is real estate talk. By the way, if you did just this, you wouldn't have to worry about the transactions, which I'm going to go over in a couple minutes. Okay. So, you know, so let's go back. It's like guessing how a book or a movie might end before getting to the end. It's your opinion until you get better facts to think with. You know, this is true because you could be creative and decide to go to the grocery store, right?
Yeah.
And think nothing of driving a 3,000 or 4,000 pound vehicle and need to dodge all those bad drivers. But because you're familiar with driving and traffic and the route, you do it without any thought. I mean, think about the last time you drove a car. Did you tell yourself to put your foot on the brake? Did you tell yourself to turn left? Did you tell yourself to put on the signal? Did you tell yourself to light the cigar? Did you tell yourself to turn on the radio? No, it's all automatic.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Which means the moment we step outside of our comfort zone and have to achieve a known goal set by us or someone else, that's when we have to start to think. So it's the unknown that we have to think about. Bullcrap.
Yeah.
That's not true. That's the false data, right? But what if instead we had a kind of plug and play system like walking or driving, and we put those ideas into action without much thought, right? Then you could actually achieve something. But we don't always trust our natural instincts and observation skills. Instead, we choose to think. You follow me?
Yeah. Well, what I kind of dawned on me is that, people that nowadays talk about being mindful or being in the present, and that's a good idea. But laying it out the way he did with there's past, present, and future, which we all know, of those three, the only thing that really is valid, the only thing that's really happening, the only thing that's really true is present.
Right.
The past, maybe it applies, maybe it doesn't. The future, that's what you make of it. And all you have to do that is present. And I watch you in a house stand and observe and just look at something like, wow, look at that electrical thing. That isn't right. And you just look and you go, we'll do this. And you've also said, I don't know if this is part of your scenario today, but you've also said sometimes the first solution isn't so hot. The second one's not much better. The third, sometimes you go 3, 4, 5, 6 deep. You go, that's a good one.
Right.
The first solution may be, I can't do it.
So I want to clarify what you just said. That's not thinking. That's actually what I do is I say, let me think for a second. So I think to myself, if I did that, could I accept it? Like if that happened to me, would I be okay with that? Like for example, I want to buy a piece of property. Like right now, I'm going this afternoon to go look at a 3-family house. I'm going to pick up a closing check, and I'm going to look at a 3-family house in Hartford. Right? Sean, who's my partner, is asking me, why are you going to look at the house? You're doing it backwards. I'm like, because we're trying to buy 2 houses together, and there's somebody in the property that's renting from her. She's from Florida. The house is in Connecticut. Properties are in Connecticut. And they're a business. And they're paying like $3,300 a month. And it's a business. So what they're doing is they're renting rooms. Not a halfway house, but the next step up. So people that are recovering or whatever are renting rooms. So my concern is, what if the economy changes and that business doesn't make it? Can I do something with this house? So I find out last night that the property is actually a single family, not a 3-family.
Oh.
Here's my point. I am not relying on my past experience. I'm not relying on my imagined experience or what I could do. I'm going to go rely on my observation skill. I just want to drive in the neighborhood. I want to sit out front, and I want to pervade, which means become part of the property. And that sounds weird, but I just want to be there and observe. I want to feel it. I want to smell it. I want to taste it, which all be difficult to do because I'll be smoking a cigar.
Joke.
But, yeah. My point is that I want that observation. Now, how do I do that when I'm out of state? Like when I'm in Akron, Ohio. So the way I do that is we have a property manager type guy, and he'll go to the house and he'll do, FaceTime. And I could do it through the phone. There's things that I'll be curious about. Like what's wrong with that furnace, and go look at it, right? And then just kind of dig in and ask questions.
Right.
Okay. So to me, thinking is actually a fallback position. It's a I don't know and a plausible excuse that has common agreement amongst humanoids. Right? Actually, You learn things so you don't need to think.
Mm-hmm.
Just like walking and driving. Right? So with that said, learning doesn't come from thinking. It comes from practicing. Learning comes from practicing things or doing unknown actions on a sort of a dry run, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or before you need to do it. Football stars do this, right?
Right.
Actors do this. Actresses do this. Golf pros do this. Musicians do this. Basketball stars. The list goes on and on, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They practice before the show.
That's right. A lot of preparation.
They have figured out how to practice safely until they learn it. Then when it's time, they don't need to think. It's instinct. It's a reaction. It's a automaticity. Because they've practiced it. So you don't need to think about it. You just need to say, oh, this is that play. You know, like this is that football player. This is that swing, or this is that song, or this. And they just go, they flip the switch and off it goes.
That's right.
Because they practiced it. So you don't need to think, you need to practice. This, by the way, walks right into the front door of the procrastinator and kicks him in the teeth.
In a good way.
Yeah, because the only thing that the procrastinator is afraid of is they might do it wrong, and they're afraid of loss. They're afraid of getting embarrassed or looking bad, or it's a fear thing. But if you could actually throw a football in your backyard and get used to it and throw that football 10,000 times before you get onto the field, you're going to feel a lot more confident when you're on the field throwing that football. I'm so sick and tired of this, Peter. I'm so sick and tired of this. It's so annoying to me. I go to the cigar shop and all these freaking guys talk about is effing golf this and swing that. They got golf clubs. They stand up, they swing the golf club, and they practice. That's all they talk about is all these chips and ironwoods and this wood, and they watch it on TV, and it's like watching paint dry. They do it because I'm with them, but my point is that when they go out, by the time they get out there in another month when it's really warm, or a few weeks, supposed to be 75 degrees this weekend, right?
They're out there. They're out there now.
They're ready. They're ready over and over and over and over and over again. Right?
So, Bill, you saying that we need a driving range for real estate?
That would be cool. So they figured out how to practice safely until they can learn it. So they learn by living. Right? Mm-hmm. Thinking or imagining goals, wants, purpose, or anything like that is smart. But does not take long to do. It's a split second. Mm-hmm. Right? Then go into action and learn through practice while you are living that specific role or persona. I want to be a real estate investor. That's a persona, a personality.
Yeah.
Right? So,
yes,
you need to find the best teacher in the world to help you with this.
Gee, I wonder who could that be?
That would be you.
That'd be you, them.
Yes, it would be you yourself, the listener themselves.
Yeah.
Then true creativity can happen. Believe in yourself. Trust your ability. Then just practice safely. That's the confusion. Is almost every investor I've ever met is spending all this money, and sometimes it's upwards of 40, 50, 70 grand. You've met them. I never did a deal.
Yeah.
And the reason why they're doing that is because they want to sound perfect like a pro the first time they talk to somebody. They're trying to close a deal within an hour on a phone or in a house and have all the answers for the seller. When in true fact, it's just the opposite. The late and great Dan Kennedy, he's an amazing marketer. Okay. He said, the uglier your advertising is, the more it pulls. I'm saying the more amateur you are, the more deals you'll do. And the reason why is because you tell the seller, oh, this is my first deal. Can you help me with it? Right? Or you say, I don't know the answer to that. I need to go get the answer. I have a mentor, or I have a friend, or I have a lawyer, or I have whatever. I'm going to go find out for you. It builds reports. They know you're real.
I imagine you'd be much less threatening to them. Can you imagine being a seller, right? And a big fancy truck shows up. 3 guys get out with like shirts with names on them on their back, you know, and they look slick. They got clipboards. Like, oh my God, these guys are going to roll me over.
Soon as I see those guys, I think it's going to cost me extra money.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what the seller's thinking. You come in with all this slick shit,
yep,
and they think you're stealing from them.
You walk in with your best pointy shoes, your best sport coat. Bill walks in with the flippity flops, the shorts, and that shirt that you're wearing right now.
Sometimes, yeah.
I dress this a little bit better because I know less than you, but not much because I don't want to pretend. You know, it's us. You know, it's people. You don't. You know, it's just real that way.
So now watch this, Peter. You ready for this little analogy?
Yeah.
A high-wire trapeze artist does not start 100 feet in the air, do they?
No, sir. Oh, no.
No, they start a few feet off the ground and practice until they feel it's safe, then move the wire up a little bit, and then a little bit more, and then a little bit more until they're at 100 feet.
But you never see that part. You think they're always just doing it the crazy way. You know, the people you say that the thought leaders that they're really doing a lot. You don't see them in the garage, in the factory, at the table working. That's the boring part. You just see them after when, oh, eureka, the phone works. And he comes out, oh, I got a phone now. Oh, he's smart. Yeah, 10,000 hours later. You don't see that other part. It's not sexy. But it's real.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Here's a weird thought. How do you overcome being unhappy so you can be happy? Because really, at the end of the day, that's all that we're trying to do. We talked about that in the last podcast with the seller. They're just trying to be happy, right?
Right.
So how do you become happy when you're unhappy?
Mm-hmm.
So you know the answer. Go ahead.
Well, it seems that happiness is not a goal, but it's actually accomplishing some goal or overcoming some obstacle you feel. Because don't you feel better when you have a little problem or like, I'm not sure what to do, and you go, oh, and you fix it. You go, I fixed it. Yay. You feel happy. Then wait a minute, what about this other thing? I'm experiencing that now with several projects I'm on. Like, you know, you win one, you lose one, you win, you know, and you just keep winning and winning. And every time it's like, I feel better. I feel happy. It's overcoming one little obstacle on the way.
That's right.
And then when you win, it's like, now what do we do? I got the checks in the checking account. Like, you know, anybody can sit down and write numbers and put zeros and commas and zeros and commas. You can do that in 2 seconds. Like, okay, now what? The game's over. It's more fun to be playing it. What do we do with the money now? What do we do?
Right. So overcoming known and unknown obstacles would be considered happiness. Yeah. So Peter, let's just like, I mean, we're in the face of profoundness right now.
Ooh.
So really what is success? And I've said this in the past too. It's doing more right things than wrong.
I like that definition.
So wait a minute. Let's dissect that for 1 second. Let's just divert for 1 second.
Yeah.
What do you mean doing more right things than wrong? So that means when you're successful, you do wrong things?
Yeah, because good luck on never doing anything wrong. Good luck on that one. So how would you ever never do anything wrong?
So Peter talks about right now a transaction we just did. We had a 3-family house and we sold it. The truth be told, if you go on to Bill's planet, I'm thinking he just what he's saying this morning. Now, this is not going to be normal for people listening, I don't think. The only reason to sell real estate, is you need cash. But if you do what I'm asking you to do, and you buy these creative deals, and you get down there, practice and learn where you're living and make some deals, and you do slot deals, and you do lease options, and you do options, and you do these things where you don't get a deed in your name, there is no risk. So go practice with those. Okay. The point that I'm trying to make is that the magic, the absolute magic of what we do, and the only reason why everybody on planet Earth, or a vast majority of people on planet Earth, want to do real estate is for this one reason. You can work really hard once and get paid multiple times. So the magic to real estate, the way you're going to get out of your job and the way you're going to get a life-changing alteration is with cash flow. If you need $4,000 a month, figure out how you can get enough leases to pay you $6,000 a month, so that if somebody doesn't pay, you're not stuck.
Yep.
So you just need to pound it out and figure out how can you get $6,000 a month. Now, that's where I know I am. I don't think you are there yet, but I'm in that position. So now let's reverse what I just said. So the only reason that you need to sell real estate is because you need money. Well, if your monthly obligations are being paid from your cash flow, then what do you need the money for? But people, this is kind of like being on an airplane and you're on the runway and you're looking out the window of the airplane. What do you see? A lot of obstacles. When you get up in the air and you're 30,000 square feet up in the air, you have a whole different viewpoint of how things look. Right? This is a 30,000 foot view. When you have bills and you don't have enough money coming in to pay your monthly bills, you're down on the runway looking at all the obstacles. You can't see it.
Yep.
Right? So truth be told, this sounds gross. So do you mind if I talk numbers?
No, go ahead.
So I told you this morning, I think we closed that deal and we got like 80,000 in the checkbook.
Yep.
Right. So the point is this. What do we do with the money? The only reason why I agreed to sell is because we actually had a 6-family house that we were trying to buy, and we were going to do a 1031 exchange. We're going to move this profit from this house to another, to the 6-family, and the seller pissed me off, and I told him to go pound salt.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So I had done this whole transaction thinking we were going to buy a 6-family and take our profit from 800 or 900, which we weren't taking out of the checkbook anyways. We were just letting it accumulate. Right.
That's right.
And move it into a $2,000 a month profit. That's why I was looking to do it.
Right. And that's a reason to sell something, because you just, you optimize your finances. Why not?
Right. So
seller's market and all that.
If you think I'm smart, I'm sorry to disappoint you. I read Cash Flow Quadrant from Mr. Kiyosaki, and that's where I got all this from. I've got my own rendition of it, but the point is this: cash flow is king. So, to a point, in fact, I had this conversation with my oldest daughter the other day because she's got some extra money that came in because of something she did, right, for the town of Wallingford. So she's got a chunk of dough. And I had this conversation with her. I've had this conversation with you recently, that just be careful when you have that chunk of dough, because if you use it all on liabilities, it'll go away and never come back. Right. So what Kiyosaki talked about is there's good debt and bad debt. Good debt is assets. A good debt is a mortgage that has a positive cash flow. A bad debt is when you pay for your car payment and all you get to do is ride around in the car and the money goes away and never comes back.
Yeah. So it's like, it gets worse and worse, older and older.
Less and less value. Yeah. Yep. So the point is that you want to make sure that what created this affluence of $80,000? Well, it was real estate.
Right. So
the thing you have to do is make sure that you put that money in a position, like I was talking about earlier, to be able to earn again. Because otherwise you'll just die. I mean, $80,000 sounds like a lot of money, but I promise you that's. I mean, if you took a year off, that's a year's salary. Yeah, you got a year, you got a bunch of pictures, and you might feel good, but that's all you're getting is a year. maybe 2 if you live conservative. That's not a lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
But you take that 80,000 and you buy a 10 or 12 family house, and all of a sudden it's spitting off $2,000-3,000 a month. Now you can live a lot longer than a year or 2.
That's right.
Right. So what is the definition of success? It's doing a lot more right things than wrong. Right.
That's right.
Always concentrate on your next step, not the end goal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Example, you want to lose weight. Don't think about the 50 pounds. Don't be weighing yourself every single day.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Instead, work on the things you can control. Like eat your next meal healthier.
Mm-hmm.
Or create time to go to the gym this week. Like, I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to get up an hour early tomorrow morning and go to the gym. You can control that. It's one thing, right? Lift 10 pounds at the gym, not 200. Right? This will completely eliminate anxiety, fear, and frustration, which is going back to the happy, unhappy thing, because now what you're doing is you're overcoming known or unknown obstacles. Right? Like they say, you eat an elephant one bite at a time, not the whole thing at once.
Right.
This is a real estate deal in the making. And you know me, Peter, until like yesterday, I called you and said, okay, transact, because until then I wasn't talking like that, right? I'm like, I'm just doing my next step and doing my next step and doing my next step. It's like at any time that deal could blow up. And I finally called you yesterday afternoon and said, Peter, I just left the bank. The money's deposited. Now we can think with this much money.
Right.
Until then, I don't do it. I don't plan on it. I don't spend that money. I don't look forward to that money. I don't even think about it. It's like not in my universe at all. It's being needyless. I'm not needy for it.
Right. You know, this gives almost like another really good reason why you always say just do the next step.
Yeah.
So if you're thinking about all the steps you have to do, well, you can't control the next 9. You can only control the one in front of you. Well, so you're looking at 9 steps that you can't handle, and it'll just be painful and annoying.
Well, let's go back to the original example. You want to go get a glass of water, and you got to move your left foot, then the right foot, and balance. And what happens is if you're trying to think about the glass of water, you will forget to move your left foot, or you'll fall off balance because you're looking at the goal instead of paying attention to your next step. Literally, move your left foot. That's the next step. Move your right foot. That's the next step. And all you do is pay attention to those because, well, I'm going to get into this in a minute because there's a reason for that. And I hope my listeners are okay with this. The guys that are listening in ZooTube or Flakebook, just send me some sort of a message. Let me know that I'm not like off my rocker here and too profound, because I could do that. I could get too deep on this shit, right? So this will completely eliminate anxiety, fear, and all kinds of frustration. Now, here's another major, and I'm giving a lot of little sentences in here that I live off of because these are my stable datums that I think with all the time, right? Where your attention goes, energies flow, results show. But your attention, put your attention on the next step, not the end goal. Right, so Desiree is saying this is good. Maybe we actually listen. This is good. Maybe we'll actually listen and do deals. Yeah, I hope so. Thank you, Desiree. Deals would be good. Right? So where your attention goes, energies flow, results show. Put your attention on the next step, not the end goal. So Peter, I'm going to get really personal for a second, which is probably the right thing to do on a podcast. I should probably do this in a private coaching group, and even then I shouldn't do that. But I'm going to tell you because I think it's too important to miss.
Yeah.
In 2020, I consciously made a decision, like before the pandemic, but during the pandemic, like in March-ish, which was a year ago.
Right.
I consciously, very arbitrarily, kind of like just ad hoc, without thinking about it, decided that I had too much noise and too much traffic that didn't belong to me in my world.
Mm-hmm.
So like I tell my VA to go out and make these phone calls, right? And I give her a script, and then the VA doesn't do it correctly, and I gotta go fix it. So it's like I have that VA, because they didn't do what I asked them to do, now developed traffic for me, because now I gotta go listen to the recordings. So it made more work for me.
Right.
Because of the non-compliance, right? So also, my wife is constantly gibbering to me about her ideas and her stuff, which is very important, but it's not what I need in my business. So I work on getting that out of my life. And it's a boring life. My life is boring to me. To most, it wouldn't be, right? Because I go through my days, and it's like every Thursday morning I do this, every Monday night I do that, and it's kind of boring. But I am here to announce that the first 3 months of this year so far, I've made more money by a lot. I made 1.5 times the amount of money so far this year in 3 months that I made all of last year.
Yeah.
And it's because where my attention goes, my energies flow, and my results show. It's because I don't need to think. Ideas just pop in my head when I need them. Because my mind is clear. It's clean. It's not thinking about some drama or some other problem that somebody else has that they're imposing onto me.
Mm-hmm.
I pick and choose where I want to put my life, because I'm the rainmaker. I'm the one that's going to decide. And every person in their own world is their own rainmaker. I choose where I'm going to put my energy and my attention and my life. I choose what to feed. It's like I'm the generator, and I choose where to put my electricity.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
I make those decisions. And when I don't want to do it, I don't do it. And that's where the thinking comes in. The only part of my thinking of being creative is I decide. It's not even thinking. I just decide, yep, I'm going to do that. And then I just do my next step.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I do the same thing with deals. I look at deals and I'm like, yep, I like that deal for whatever reason. And then I just do my next step. Or I don't like that deal. Sometimes it's people, sometimes it's buildings, sometimes it's the numbers. It doesn't matter. At some point when I'm doing my discovery stage, which we talked about in other podcasts, I decide, yes, this is the one I'm going to pursue. Or no, this is just another one I don't want to pursue. Because in final, and then I'm going to let you say what you want to say. In final, what you're going to realize, and it took me, I think 20 years, 18 years, I don't know, whatever the number is. It took me a long time to realize this. And this is, I wish somebody told me that. Well, people told me this. I wish I understood this much earlier in my life.
Yeah.
I'm not at like right now I'm partnered up with Sean, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I realized recently, Sean wants to do quantity. He's 25 years old. He wants to do quantity.
Mm.
And I'm like, no, I don't want quantity. I did that already. I own 20-something houses. I was doing 3, 4, 5 deals a month. And quantity was great, but it wasn't where I made money. What I want is quality. I want a quality of deals. I'm willing to do 1 deal a month, but I make 80 grand on that deal. You know what I mean? I'm willing to do 1 deal every 2 or 3 months, but I make 120 grand on the deal, or whatever the number is.
Mm-hmm.
So I look for quantity. So that means I go a little bit slower, right? And I pay more attention to those transactions while I'm doing that.
Mm.
It's not thinking; it's just observing and having that emotion. I like this deal. I should pursue this. Not because it's the only deal I have. It's because the seller's talking in the right way. I got to tell you right now, the best tool that I use that I've never even really talked about, the best tool that I use, and I've never said this publicly, is the amount of communication lag I have. If I call you and leave you a message, do you call me right back? Right?
Yeah.
If you call me, do I call you right back? That is a telltale if I ever heard it. So if I call a seller and it takes me 4 days to get the seller on the phone, what is the likelihood that they're motivated? So I recently get very quick. I leave 1 or 2 messages and then I put them in follow-up. I waste them. I don't even want to talk to them. It's like it doesn't create any wants for me to like stay together. It's the biggest tool I use, and it's so obvious that you don't even notice it. You know, what kind of communication lag do they have on responding?
Yeah, that's such an indicator that if it starts like that, what's it going to be like when you have to really do things with them and a problem comes up and you have to figure out how to solve it? Now what? If they're not that engaged with you, that interested, forget it.
Exactly.
What I was going to say before is you mentioned this a long time ago, that you have to be excited about a deal. Like you actually have to want to do it. It's not just a job. Like, there's a next hole, dig it. It's a transaction that you're involved in. It's like picking a job. How many people like their job?
Yeah.
Right? You do. Right. I do.
Yeah.
But the people that don't like their job don't like their job. So why would you get involved in a real estate deal that you don't like? It's like working for a job that you hate. Why would you do that? So find one that you like and then do a nice one.
Here's a comment.
Yeah.
It's only a job if you don't like it, because I don't think I work every day.
Yeah.
I don't think I have a job. I'm doing what I like. I don't consider it a job. So it's only a job if you don't like it. That's what makes it a job. Yeah. That's the definition of a job, is doing something you don't like to do to get paid.
Yep.
That's the definition of a job. I mean, most entrepreneurs use it as an acronym, just over broke. But really a job is something that you would, if you were left to your own devices, you would not do it every day.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you right now, if you leave me to my own devices, which I am every day, I do it every day. I don't do it because of I get paid for it and I live a good life but I get up in the morning, I write my emails and I do the podcast. We don't get paid for this podcast. Matter of fact, it costs me money every week. And you donate your time every single week. This podcast costs me 5 or 6 hours a week of my time. By the time I write it, by the time I type it, in the chat, by the time we edit it, it's 5 or 6 hours a week. And I pay Emma to do editing. I don't get a single penny for this.
Yep.
And every single week I get multiple, usually a couple, not every week, but at least 2 times or 3 times a month, I get people sending me messages saying that they want to advertise on this podcast. And they want to monetize my podcast. They want to come here and they want to do advertisements because they know I have listeners. And I don't do it. Because this is what I do. This is what I believe in. Someday that will change. Someday you'll be like, this is our last podcast. Nice knowing everybody, and we're done. But until then, here we are. Okay. All right, way off topic. Putting your eye on a mountain is just a compass setting. The first step towards that mountain is your next step getting you to the mountain. So it's an old saying, putting your eye on your mountain. It's kind of like setting your goals and just keeping your eye on the mountain. Like you're down, like you're in California and you're in the valley and you see the mountain and you want to get to the top of the mountain and you say, I'm going to get to the top of the mountain. And you constantly keep your eye on the mountain so you don't get lost. So it's just a compass setting.
Right, but even then, you should figure out all the steps. Take a left at the valley, go up the river, cut 2 miles, get out of the canoe. There should be steps along the way.
And as you accomplish each of those steps, you'll feel happier and happier because you're doing something and and the mountain is getting closer and closer. Right? Not to mention your morale will go up because you're producing, so your morale will go up. You'll feel better. Your confidence will soar, and your train can't be knocked off the rails. right?
Yeah.
Doing this, you'll start to notice your time and energy will be very efficient after a while because you're just thinking about, you got your eye on the mountain. And all you're thinking about is how do you get on the top of that mountain?
Mm-hmm.
By the way, knowing what you want is important, like the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
But your actions show the real passion or the true passion and the fuel that runs your engines. So too many times I get people come in and they say they want to be a real estate investor. They'll pay me the money and then not show up on a coaching call. Mm. Whoever doesn't show up on a coaching call multiple times, I know they're just bullshitting me about their passion. They really don't mean it. Because think about it. The coaching call, on my American coaching call, is every Monday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I've been doing this 5 years. There's been once, because I was traveling, I had and I chose to do that because somebody was willing to run the coaching call for me. Mm-hmm. I do it every Monday night. I've never had a problem with showing up on the Monday night coaching call. I'm there every week. So why would my students be that way? Mm. Right? My passion is there to help them. My words and my actions match. They trust me. They pay me every month to do that. And it's not because of the money. Believe me, it's not because of the money. I mean, the money's important, don't get me wrong, but that's not what's motivating me. What's motivating me is I actually want to help these guys do a deal, or these girls do a deal. I actually want to do it. I'm looking for deals to do transactions on. That's what gets me excited, is the hunt of the deal, or the chase of the deal, or closing the deal, whether it's me or somebody else, right? So the passion is what, it's like I always say, look, don't listen. Mm-hmm. Right? You don't listen to what somebody says, watch their actions. And the passion is what drives those actions. If you really, really do care about it, you're gonna jump over puddles, and you're gonna swim through oceans, and you're gonna, blaze through fires, and you're gonna do whatever it takes to get it because you really mean it. Mm-hmm. Right? It's amazing what happens. If you do this with a seller and don't know crap about real estate, they will let you do their deal. You don't need to know about real estate. You just need to have this passion, eye on the mountain, that you're going to help them, and just figure it out. And they will let you do it.
And read the lease option explained thing and write it 10 times.
Right.
So you at least understand that, so you can have the conversation and know about it. As an educator, I teach people and they ask questions, and it's right in what they just read. Go back, study it a little bit more, read it again, draw pictures, look up words, do something, but study it. Don't read it, study it. It's right there.
Observe it.
Yeah.
Remember I said learning is observing it. So the author's writing a concept. So make sure you understand it and observe the concept as a concept, not some other thing that you're trying to, based on your experience and your imagination. No. The author wrote it. It must be real, and you have to trust it. Now, you could go test it and find out the author's full of crap. That's another story. Mm-hmm. But you should not always, what is the word I want? You want to blame the author that it didn't work first. Mm-hmm. I mean, he wouldn't have written a book unless there was some truth to it. So you should always look internally in yourself before you condemn the author. Because more than likely you didn't do it right, and you missed the concept, and it's not working because you missed something.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. True.
All right, so let's create some actions for our rookie creative real estate investors to practice on while living and learning. So I've got some steps here. I think there's about 10 of them that you should write down. You should listen to this podcast and write them down. I'm not going to write them down for you and give them to you for free, because that's not my job. It's your job. So here we go. Step number 1.
I was hoping there was some homework today. Good.
There is homework.
Good.
So you ready?
Yeah.
Step number 1.
Should I write them down too? Let me get some here. There we go.
So what is step number 1? It's the first thing you do, Peter.
Wake up in the morning, you say, I'm a real estate investor.
You don't need to do that.
Okay.
By the way, people that do that rev themselves up like that, are not really passionate. They're trying to convince themselves it works.
Yeah, you don't need to rev yourself if you're not revved. If you're not revved, you're not revved.
So those people have a lot of noise and traffic that other people are developing for them in their world.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Step number 1, listen to podcast number 151. Listen to podcast 151. It's called 15 Steps of a Deal Meeting with Your Sellers. Podcast number 151. It's called 15 Steps of a Deal Meeting with Your Sellers.
That was good. Just all the detail. Because, you walk up to a house, you go, oh, what do? I don't know what I'm doing. I can't do this. And you just laid it out. Do this, do this, do this. Little steps that you can do.
15
that was good. That was good.
Number 2, go to Flakebook Marketplace or Zillow and find renters. Not for sale by owners, find renters. They're already collecting payments. The first hurdle is done. They're willing to accept payments. Now ask them if they're willing to accept payments for a year or two, and then you buy it.
Mm-hmm.
It's the best prospect to find in the beginning, right?
Yep.
So now you're going to try to contact them either by text or by phone. I can tell you that text is going to work better because most people don't answer the phone if they don't recognize the phone number.
Yep.
Right? Which, by the way, I have this new idea that I want to change. I want to come up with the right words in caller ID.
The caller ID.
Yeah, we buy houses as the caller ID number.
Oh,
I don't know how
yeah.
to do it. Yeah.
Wow.
So instead of the number coming up or your name coming up, you put in there, we buy houses.
That's good.
Right. Step number 3. Are you good with step number 2? So you're going to go on Flakebook or Zillow. You're going to look for renters and you're going to text them or call them. I prefer you start with text. You'll get more results.
Yeah. Step
number 3, use my famous script for FSBOs on my free stuff page. Right, which the description, the link to get to the free stuff page is in your description of wherever you're listening to this podcast, in the description of the podcast, or the Facebook streaming, or the YouTube streaming, or Twitter, or wherever you are. In that description, click on that link, and it'll bring you to the free stuff page. Download the for sale by owner script, and there you have it. You can text that. You can use that to actually talk to people. Okay. Step number 3.
Oh, a question, Bill, do we have to change the first line of the script because it's usually for sale by owners and these are renters?
Yeah, so you could do that if you want. And the script should be, would you be willing to rent for a year or two without the landlord obligations and then sell to me?
Well, that's in the script too, isn't it? After you ask, that's part of the FSBO script.
The FSBO script doesn't have that sentence in there. But then afterwards, if they say yes, you say, will you be willing to do a terms deal? And you just do the FSBO script.
Yeah, because I think that the language is in there like later, like third step in there, but maybe you could lead with it, you think. Okay, that's good. Yeah. Okay.
Step number 3.
Mm-hmm.
Peter, this sounds so simple, but this is where the checklist will stop for most.
Mm-hmm.
Make an appointment to go see the person willing to talk to you about a deal.
Mm-hmm.
Except, go look at this property as if you were going to go buy it and live in it yourself. And don't try to buy it. Mm-hmm. Don't try to put it on a contract. But look at it as if you were going to go there with your current living arrangements with your friends or family or whoever, by yourself, whatever you're going to do, and say, could I live here and how would it work? Imagine that. It will put you into the deal. Right? Then you just talk to the seller, right? And the most important thing you could say to a seller before you leave is, what would have to happen for me to buy your house today? And write it down verbatim, exactly the way they say it. In worst case scenarios, you send me a support ticket and say, here's what they said. Write down the verbatim sentences or the answer. And then if I think it's a deal, I'll help you. If I think it's too confusing and it's coaching, then I'll tell you need to get in a coaching group, but that's another story. I usually help first.
Yep.
So go into a property as if you were going to live in it or buy it yourself. Don't try to buy it. And you're there just to observe the seller's mannerisms. You want to observe the questions they would ask. You want to observe their reactions to your comments and to your questions. You want to know what they're thinking. You want to study the seller. You're not in the house business. You're in the seller, pretty house seller business. So study your seller. This is no different than copywriting. If I'm going to sell something, I should go through the experience of buying the product. Right? And then I can write about it. But I have to live it first. I have to learn by living. I have to purchase the product, go through whatever the buyer is going to go through. In this case, you're going to go through whatever the seller is going to go through, and just observe it. Okay?
Yeah.
Don't imagine it. Don't think of your past experiences. Just get all that, park all that stuff for the time you're with them, and just observe them. Just study them. Just watch them. Right? Step number 4. While you're on the phone and in the house, record yourself talking to the seller. Now, you don't need to tell them you're recording this because you're not going to sell it or you're not going to expose this on the public internet or anything like this. It's going to stay on your phone. It's just going to be for you to listen to.
Right.
Okay, so you don't have to be uncomfortable with that. You can just kind of record it. I use my iPhone. You know, my iPhone has, what is it called? Messenger? What is it called?
I forgot. There's different ones.
Memo, that's what it is.
Memo?
Right, yeah. So you could record it on your phone. What I do is I carry a little clipboard. I turn my phone upside down so you can't see the screen, and I just carry it around the house. So fortunate these days, because we used to do that with actual tape recorders back in the day in my pocket. And you could hear my pocket, you know, the tape recorder moving around in my pocket.
Oh, on tape. Oh, God.
Yeah.
Oof.
Right?
Oof.
All right. So while on the phone and in the house, record yourself talking to the seller. That's step number 4. Step number 5, now go listen to podcast number 205, which is how to easily flip sellers' objections into profitable deals ethically and honestly. So episode 205, and that's part 1. Part 2 is 206. So you're going to listen to episode 205 and 206, which is how to easily flip sellers' objections into profitable deals ethically and honestly.
Yep.
Okay. Step number 6 is match your recording of talking to the seller with episode 205 and 206. So you're going to compare what we're talking about on those notes from what you heard in the house. In other words, the things they said, the objections, the stalls, the resistance, anything that you heard, you're going to hear us talking about that in episode 206 and 205.
Right.
Step number 7, take notes on where you were good and where you were not so good. So actually write them down. So when you're listening to the recording, after you listen to episode 205 and 206, you're going to actually listen to your own recording and write down notes where you're like, I could have done better with that. And just write notes. Okay. Step number 8, now you know where your next steps are. Eye on the mountain, you know where your next steps are. And where you need to put your attention for your next step. Maybe it's sending me a support ticket and say, how do you answer this question? Or maybe it's getting on a free meetup, or maybe it's getting into one of my coaching groups. I can tell you right now, minimally, the thing that you should do is, and if you don't have this, send me a support ticket and I will send you the link. But we have a WhatsApp group that's called Let's Talk Real Estate. Get in that WhatsApp group. It's for free. On your phone, get in that WhatsApp group and say, hey, how do you guys answer this question when a seller says this? And let everybody answer you. It's already done for you. It's there.
And how much does that cost? How much?
Yeah, it was free. It is free.
But you have to like pick up the phone and type some things in and actually do it, huh?
Right.
It's always a catch, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Step number 9.
Yeah.
Make a one-on-one 45-minute free consult with me and tell me how it went. That's flippinghousesforrookies.com/free consult. flippinghousesforrookies.com/free consult. Let me know how it went. Or send me a support ticket. Step number 10, Peter, and the final step is do this a minimum of 3 times, a maximum of 5 times within the next 30 days.
Yep.
If you do this 10-part checklist that I'm talking about, you will get into the real estate business and you will accomplish more than anybody can charge you $50,000 for. What you will learn in these 10 steps are what really has to happen in every transaction, every deal, everything. It'll be a foundation that you will never forget. It will not be your entire education, but it will point you in the right direction. It is putting your eye on the mountain, setting the compass, and starting. And it doesn't cost you a dime.
Bill, you know what this reminds me of? When I first started, I think it was, 2 weeks after I talked to you, we were in a house looking at it.
Yeah.
And like you were surprised that I did it. And I didn't know any better, so I just did it. But here's the point. Folks, when you do this, you're going to find out that it actually works. You don't have to buy a house. You just have to find out that people actually want to sell to you. They want to talk to you. If it doesn't work out, that's fine. But it is an actual activity that you can get in on. The phone will ring. You can talk to them. They're happy you're there most of the time. They're hoping you'll buy it. If the numbers aren't right, you move on to the next one. But you'll find out it's a real thing, and you'll think, holy crap, maybe you can really do this. And then you will.
Yep. Yep. Wow. Who else is out there, Peter, telling these folks how to learn how to do this? Who else is pounding the pavement saying, learn while you live? For free. We did this on a podcast for free. Who else is doing that?
Nobody.
Without ever going within 10 feet of your wallet to learn this amazing craft. And all you got to do is just listen to this podcast and our other podcast, and you have enough.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I know many others would really want to charge you 20 to 50 grand to teach you all about the shiny objects. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Not like the personal coaching I've given you today. For free.
Mm-hmm.
In final, Peter, once you learn to be comfortable with these pretty house sellers, they will tell you how to buy their house. You don't have to be a dealologist like I am. You'll get that way. This is how I got this way, is I just kept doing the 10 steps I just gave you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I wasn't using Facebook back then, but I would just get in houses in front of people anytime, anywhere, any possible way I could do it. And I worked my way through it, and I still do that. Right?
That's right.
We just put an offer on a house, and what did I tell you? What was our next step? Let's go out and break into the house. Like, I already been there, right? What did you say? I already been there.
Mm-hmm.
We walked around the house, and what did I do?
We just observe, look, figure we could do this, we could do that.
How did we get in the house?
First deciding we probably could, and just found an opening.
So I kept thinking, yeah, how are we going to get in? The doors are locked. And I went, and I opened the garage door, and it was connected to the garage door opener.
Yeah, I saw that. There's no handle for that thing won't open because there's an electronic. I stopped myself. This is your point. And I'm trying not to do it, and I still did it. I try, like, Nothing's going to stop me. You know what it is? The world can stop you. There's so many things that can stop you. Why the hell would you stop yourself? But yeah, but it happens. I did it. Like, well, that won't open. And you went, boom, up it went.
And we were in the house for half an hour, walking around, and we made our decision, and we put an offer in the house, and nobody else was putting an offer in the house because they couldn't get in it. The bank that owns it that realized after 3 years later they actually own the house. They didn't know it because you told them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You tipped them off because your persistence, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we walked around the house, and we were the first one to put an offer in. Where are we going to buy the house? I don't know, but we were the first one to put an offer in. They have a written offer with $1,000 deposit. So we'll see what happens, right? So once you're comfortable with your sellers, then you can't go wrong. It doesn't matter. Then it's just a matter of how many sellers can I talk to. That's what I do.
Yeah. I'm
comfortable talking to any one of my sellers because there's nothing that they can say to me anymore that can rattle my cage. Right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Then, once you do all of that, you perfect your craft by going to flippinghousesforrookies.com, and on the front page, log into them. Most people probably have it, but you can then go into the creative real estate deal making 101. See, here's what I'm trying to trick you into doing. Go through the 10 steps, go talk to sellers, get a feel for it. So now when you listen to the Creative Real Estate Deal Making 101, it makes sense because now you've already observed what could happen and why it would happen. Instead of watching those videos or listening to that free training that's worth hundreds of dollars and imagining what could happen or thinking about past experiences of when you might have made that offer and it didn't work. Now what you're going to use is you're going to use that information in present time based on your observation that just happened last week. And you're going to be able to apply it because it's being applicable to the seller that you were talking to. Because now when you start watching those videos, you're going to be thinking about that house you were in and how you could have used it in that house. Learn while you're living.
Yeah.
There's no other way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be in the house, and you're going to have you're going to have that memory. And now, when you watch those videos, you're going to be like, "Oh, I could have said this," or "Oh, I could have done that," or "I should call them back because I can make an offer now."
Mm-hmm.
And if you do that process, those 10 steps enough times, 5, 10 times over the course of a couple months, you'll be amazed at your progress. And oh yeah, by the way, you never had to think about it. Thinking is overrated. Mm-hmm. What you need to do is you need to be that football star that once he grabs the football, he just goes into automatic mode and it just happens. The play just happens because he's practiced it so many times, it just happens.
Yep.
Right? You need to be that pro golfer that he puts the ball down on the tee and he lines himself up and swings and it just happens. He didn't have to learn about anything. It was a reaction.
Well, Bill, I teach music as one of my day job things, and people ask me songs, and I pulled out a song from 40 years ago and just started playing it. So how do you do that one? And I just started playing it. It was bizarre. It all came out. It was bizarre. I do it a lot. It's in there. So preparation, practice, but it doesn't happen without preparation, practice, living, experience, but living.
It's not thinking.
No, it just comes right out.
It's reflexes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. So don't forget to go in the description, click on the link, go get all of our free goodies. Realize that I'm only a click away, flippinghousesforrookies.com. Hit the support ticket in the top right-hand side. And I'm on the other side. I answer them within 24 hours, unless, of course, I'm on vacation, which I will be doing pretty soon. I'll be doing that in May. So we got to talk about how we're going to handle the podcast because I will be out of town in May. I'll be with my lovely bride down in Hilton Head, enjoying my family. Otherwise, just send me a support ticket and I will be there to answer any of your questions and help you with whatever you need. Please take our advice today. I know that the podcasts have been pretty cool. I've been getting a lot of comments since episode 200. We stopped joking around and started doing some stuff and have really improved on the podcast. I get a lot of support tickets. So please go to flippinghousesforrookies.com, top right-hand side, and hit testimonial and leave us some sort of a testimonial. I'm close to having 100 of them on the page. I'm looking for people to go give them to me so I can hit that 3-digit number.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if you feel like we've given you a lot of value and you enjoy us being here, even if you've left testimonials before, go give us another one because I want to hit 100. Eye on the mountain, Peter. I want to hit 100.
There you go.
So, all right, guys, thank you for being with us. We'll talk to you next week. Enjoy your week and go make some offers. Over and out.